So are we meant to not use names, student names?
Yeah, so maybe initials? Initials. Yeah.
Okay, so when I came in,
Yes.
there was immediately sort of energy around CEO. So I came in about 10 minutes into the lesson, and there was already that immediate early signs of disruptive off-task behaviour, dysregulation, etc. You were just saying prior to that you tried to send him out for a walk to see if you could.
Yep. I said, mate, I don't appreciate the 6-7 that you're saying. We've already addressed this as the whole class, but I think they just like to use it as a point to get me riled up or whatever.
Push
Push a boundary, yeah, because they know it annoys me so much.
Yeah.
So he just kept going. I said, mate, I think you need to take a walk. He said, no, I'm good. And I said, no, I think you need to take a walk. He was like, okay. So I said 5 minutes. He went for his walk. He came back. He sat down, but he was still dysregulated. Started doing silly things with JF next to him. So I moved CO
Yeah.
to a different spot, but he still was
Well,
like...
I was in here for that bit, the
Yeah.
warning and the move. Or I think you issued a warning to him again when I came in, and then you moved him within a couple of minutes of me coming back in. And then he was like basically right in front of you, eyeballing you at that closest table, desk in the room. My first comment in my notes was that you use that pair share opportunity as a really good chance to re-engage him and, sort of work with him one-on-one to redirect his behaviour, and I thought that was really, really positive. Like it seemed to work.
He gave me good answers, so like it sort of worked.
Yeah, no, like in that moment, it was, I thought it was really effective, really, really successful intervention that you did with him then. But then obviously it didn't last, so then I stepped out of the room. So describe exactly what happened.
So after you stepped out of the room, we continued on with the reading. He started reading along with me, and I said, mate, we're doing is it choral read? We're doing the choral read, where if I stop, that's when you read the next word.
Oh, yeah,
and
close reading,
yeah. And he was like, yep, okay, I'm sorry. And I was like, all right, sweet. Started reading again. Then he started calling out random words, and I was like, no, mate, that's not what we're doing. It's when I stop, you'll know when you're supposed to say the word. He was like, okay, yep. He did it again. He started following along. So when we got to one of the question sections of the worksheet, I was like, mate, you need to grab your stuff. We're going to go for a walk. He's like, no, I won't do it again. And I said, no, mate, you've had your chances, all right? You're going to take your worksheet. You're going to finish it with this.
Yeah.
With KF. So I took him down, saw KF. She said, am I taking CO? I said, yep. I said, he's got a worksheet. He can work through that until the end of the lesson. Left him with there and then came back. Class was still really dysregulated though, just as an overall thing.
Was your read on it that they were sort of piggybacking on his energy, or is it separate?
I think it may have started off with everyone was a little bit dysregulated. Like I did make them line up and I did make them come in and sit down. And it was okay for a little bit, but then I think they started picking up on the 6-7 thing because JF started saying it and SH started saying it, and then CE, yeah. CE started saying it, so it started spreading around the room, and the girls up the back were saying it as well. So I think it kind of started off like they were a little bit out of it, and they would have gone into it had the lesson been a little bit more regulated, but I think they just jumped on the bandwagon and off they went.
Yep.
And then once they were in that spot, it was very hard to
Just silly.
get them back.
Yeah. And like off the top of my head, like it's one of those things. It's not necessarily a simple fix or a simple this is what you should have done or could have done to nip it in the bud when you first detected it. It's just one of those things that sort of gets away from you. There was a bit of, I don't know, interesting interactions between TS and CE. Like she was constantly making comments about him and constantly. Is that a common thing? Not necessarily in a negative.
I haven't really, like, they do interact quite a bit.
Yeah.
Where like she grabbed his pen for him when he asked for a pen to borrow, and she's like, "Oh, I've already got you one." Sometimes they can get a bit, not like narky, but like, how do I describe it? Like teasy,
Yeah.
but not like
Yeah.
bad teasy, like
Flirty
playful,
teasy.
flirty teasy. Yes, yeah. I haven't noticed it as much, but I think it's getting a little bit more obvious.
Yeah. Because then even during that whole group discussion, so after the pair share, during that whole group discussion, which again, SH jumping in, really proactively.
Yeah.
And CEO wanted to do that too, and so that side of the room, that front of the room, was sort of engaged with that. And then I found it quite interesting that the girls in that back corner, including TS, they were sort of like turned away from the conversation or not following the conversation necessarily and having their own little conversations. So like even it wasn't all the girls, it probably was mostly TS that was probably or like a bit off as well. And it still is that, I mean, this is often with girls, they're still, 95% compliant and still, following along with a lot of the stuff.
Yep.
And their behaviour isn't as disruptive or isn't as, it doesn't have as much of an effect on other students. But, you could sort of tell that she was a bit off too. And then the balance ends up skewing, with her getting a bit silly and getting a bit, off task, etc. But then in saying that, you very markedly went around the room and you sort of worked around all the groups and got them to have contributions. And like to begin with, JE in the front group, did the classic like, oh no, my ass is up on the board, that sums it up kind of thing. And it he was one that had his head on the table at one point.
Oh yeah, PH
did.
Yeah.
And but also he's one that takes a bit of extra support and isn't that confident. Like he's confident enough to talk in class, but isn't that confident on his answers necessarily. There's that, kind of sweet spot with him. And then TS you went to and she did the same thing. Like, oh no, they're all good. Like, yep, good work everybody. Without obviously technically engaging with it. But then you kept going and PB had a really solid contribution. JF had a really solid, one of the JFs, the back JF had a really solid contribution that sort of got everything back on track again. And at that point you'd also told them to take notes on the board, and that direction was enough to get all the girls back, engaged. And that obviously is a really effective strategy that you've built up over time.
Yeah.
That works really well for that group.
Yeah, the note taking works really well actually.
Yeah.
I had one of the girls at lunch complain from my class, being like, Miss McLennan's class doesn't have to take that many notes. And I was like, that's Miss McLennan's class, you're in my class.
And yeah, I mean, it's something that, you implemented as sort of strategy with your group, and noticing that they weren't sort of engaging with the content or they weren't quite,
They like to sit back and just
passenger.
Yeah. They're like, she'll tell me what I need to know. And
Yeah.
I'm like, no, you need to take notes. And if you're not taking notes, you're copying down stuff from the board that I've written up.
And it's very interesting because a lot of those girls in that back row, again, strong, pretty compliant, you are developing a lot of independence, etc. But they needed that prompt to do it, and they still need that routine and that expectation to sort of do it, and then that's enough. Like that's because you already got the routine established, which is good. So then I came back in during you halfway through the supplementary reading stuff, which was really good, because I think that the use of sort of non-fiction text or shorter texts in the reading phase of our lesson sequence or lesson structure is quite interesting to think about and look at, and what we do with that, which is in contrast to doing the text day stuff.
Yeah.
The closed reading was a really good strategy. So I was, obviously when CO was, making a mockery of it, but for the rest of the students, they weren't affected. They were able to keep going with that, and that was really good. Good chance to sort of keep them accountable and, You know, was there a trigger that made you use that strategy?
So I found when we were reading Jasper Jones earlier in the year, I was doing a lot of the reading myself, even when I was like, oh, we'll get you to read, or like the same people were constantly volunteering to read. Because I'm like, if you volunteer, you get a values point, and you can volunteer as much as you want.
Yep.
And it's up to you how much you read. If you say, I only want to read a paragraph, you can only read a paragraph. All right. Sometimes I might say, oh, can you stretch it and to read to this point if I think they can do a little bit more. But I found that no one wanted to read, and it was constantly just me reading. And I was like, well, I don't want to just have them sit there and do nothing.
Yeah.
So I started saying, if I pause, that's when you guys have to pick up that word. I even brought in this thing where I'm like, if I see when I look up and you haven't said the word, I may choose you to read next. And you don't have a choice and you don't get a values point. Yep. Which helped a lot because I got people actually volunteering to read. And the choral reading works because they actually follow along instead of just staring off into space.
Which is really good. I thought there was a good discussion too when they sought clarification around the term mainstream media. You managed to handle that on the run pretty quick.
Yeah. Helps when I've had the lesson before this morning.
Oh yeah, was that something that popped up there?
Yeah, so they asked the same question, they're like, what's mainstream media? And I was like, oh, okay, so mainstream media is like, if you think of the news, like, yeah, it's in the news, but then it's also like, it's got the texts that are coming, like the books that are coming out, the movies that are coming out, the TV shows that are popular at the moment. That's mainstream media, and they got it a lot better after that.
Would you modify your planning in response to that?
So I would actually include, like, even though this is like copy and paste from like a full document that I found, I would actually add in stuff about what mainstream media is, maybe even incorporating it into the question, saying like, this is what mainstream media is, this is the question I want you to answer.
Just give that extra context in the moment.
Yeah.
When it's relevant to...
Yeah, so that way they can just answer it, and if they need more clarification, I can give that as well.
Yep, good. My wonderings that come out of the supplementary reading, and again, this is sort of looking at it with a bit of a PRC curriculum lens on it, but I guess sort of our options when it comes to the whole group instruction and the read phases. Mm-hmm. So, like in this, if you go back to the reading reconsidered stuff, it's always sort of balancing the pros and cons of all the different options you've got. And so there's pros in doing the whole group instruction and having them at the same point and sort of working through it and having the written responses embedded within the document, the reading and discussion on top of that, which was really good. But I was starting to wonder whether there were some differentiation options or opportunities in that as well, and what that might look like.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I was actually thinking as I was reading it that there's probably a lot of like words that they won't have encountered, and I'm reading them and they're just going, oh, that's a word I don't know, and then just moving on. So I'm thinking like if I was to scaffold it, I would maybe have like a slightly different activity where I'm like, if you don't understand a word, circle it and we'll come back to it. And either as a class we can go through and work out those definitions together, or maybe an activity where they individually get to work out what words mean what. So that way they've got that.
It can be pretty labour intensive in terms of your planning.
Yeah.
But that kind of vocab work is the incidental vocab work. So it's the vocab instruction for the purposes of comprehension, not vocab instructions for the purpose of learning the word necessarily. And so sometimes just to have it actually annotated on the text itself, sort of identify what the words are going to be that may cause some confusion or need some clarification, and have it like this sort of reduces cognitive load too, which is to not have them to need to refer to something else. Context clues or anything like that. It's just right there.
Just doing it in the moment too, like going along and being like, this is what normalise means. Yeah.
And that can be part of the, it can just be verbal. Yeah, just part of your planning, that you sort of understand that these are the things you might need to be prepared for. Yeah. Just to give that information in the moment to help with comprehension. And then I was thinking too, sort of around, I guess I had the multi-tiered systems of support in my head. Around the likes of JE and that sort of group at the front that perhaps do require a little extra support. Yep. And whether that, there's a way of being able to embed within the whole class reading phase of the unit a chance to grab them into a small group and either scaffold or reteach, or
Yep.
spend a bit more time focusing on sort of the underpinning reading skills in that, whereas you've got other students who are a lot more independent with it.
Yeah.
And similarly, that then opens up as an opportunity for extension tasks for some of those higher flyers.
Yeah. Well, I did think so. When I started the activity, I gave the class the option. So on the slides, it said that I was reading to them, but I gave them the option, since we've been doing a lot of accountable, independent reading.
Yep.
Do you, as a class, want me to read, or do you want to read independently? A couple people did say they wanted to read independently, but when they saw that the rest of the class wanted me to read, they did put their hand down.
Yep.
So I was like, maybe going off what you're saying is, instead of offering it to the classes, I read, and then there's only one or the other, maybe it could be that I read up the front with a group and you move to sit with me. And then if you want to work at your desk and you want to work at your own pace, that's what you do.
Yep.
That might be something.
And it can depend on the text.
Yeah.
Like if the text is not really a text that can be handled independently for even the stronger kids.
Yeah.
Then, you don't opt for that.
Yeah.
But if there is a chance to give the others who are capable of that independent reading a chance to both do it a bit quicker, and then perhaps also fit in an extension task that hopefully, ideally, they can bring back to the whole group
Yeah.
by the time you get to the end of that reading phase.
Yeah.
Just sort of reconnect what they've learned, all of that extra bit that they've done.
Yeah. And then also share their knowledge with the rest of the class.
Yeah.
Extend their ideas a little bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just so they can start to see a little bit what that next level looks like, what that next step looks like.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're still working around exactly what those kinds of options are. All right. Well, that was the main notes that I took. Is there anything else that occurred to you that?
Not really. Just that last period on a Tuesday afternoon. Last period any afternoon actually is just not usually a great period. They're either too hyped up or they're too cooked from the whole day to actually.
So this group, how many times would they have a Friday period 5? Period 5.
This group only has it on the Tuesday. The other group has Thursday, Friday. Yeah, it's like bang bang. I'm like, the Friday one's real rough.
Yeah.
But this group has the issue where Wednesday morning when they come in, they're just sleepy.
Strung out.
Like,
so they go from Tuesday
afternoon being like hyper to like basically Monday morning, but Wednesday morning where they come in and like I ask them a question and they just stare at me. And I'm like, okay, is anyone actually present?
Mm-hmm.
Have you come to school or have you left your brains at home?
Do you have anything that's worked specifically? I know we talked in the past about.
So I have been trying out, so like when we do like the beginning of the lesson, if we're jumping back in, I usually get them to say we only got partway through like a reading section and they did finish the dot points that they write down, that I have them write down, but we didn't actually get to the discussion. I have them actually come in, reread their dot points that they wrote down to like refresh of the section that we read yesterday, and then I start with that discussion.
Yep.
So that way they've got the points already there to go, and it's just like, that's what you wrote down yesterday, and then we discuss it.
Yep.
Say we come back in and it's a writing activity. Usually if it's in the morning, that like particular double period morning, I will be a lot more like, not, how do I say this? Like I will model it a lot more than have them do it independently.
Yep.
So it might be that I don't actually, sometimes I write it on the board. Most of the time it's just me standing up the front, like asking leading questions. And they do sort of do it on their own, but like, it's a lot more, I don't know how to say that. It's a lot more what? I don't know. Scaffolded. Guided, that's the word I think I'm looking for.
Yep.
Just because their brains haven't woken up yet.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that even when there is sort of a class or a lesson that carries over, and I mean this is constantly a bit of a issue with our English stuff and the planning and time management, and the fact that when you're delivering a particular lesson you can take 20 minutes longer to give it to one class than it gives to another class, all these kinds of factors. That just makes it, it's not the structural literacy box of the primary school. It's, you have to have that open-endedness and that opportunity to, sort of expand and.
I find in the 9-10s place, I don't. It's very rare for me to actually complete a whole planned lesson in that hour. Like, it's so rare.
Yep.
Or like, I think one time I've had one lesson all year where I got through a whole lesson and I had 15 minutes to spare. So we moved on to the next lesson.
Yeah.
Which like, and then the other class like had that whole lesson in it. There wasn't that extra 15 minutes. Like, I think it depends on what period it is. It depends on who's actually there on the day. It depends on the weather. Like, they don't like rain. They don't like it when it rains.
Very temperamental, 9-10 years, aren't they? They're like dogs or horses.
Yeah, pretty much. But like, I find that most of the time I'm like, when I'm doing like writing down like, oh, we're up to this lesson, I'm doing like, we're on slide 213 of this slide deck.
Do you think we need to reduce the size of the lessons?
I'm thinking maybe we do, like maybe there needs to be less, and then that way if we do have extra time we just move on to the next lesson.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
I mean, the trick is especially with text study units wanting to read the whole text,
Yeah.
and so the chunks are logical
Mm.
because they make sense in terms of what's in that chunk of text.
Yeah, yes,
And so, you know, the chunks kind of define how long the lesson is,
yes.
rather than going, well, no, I can only fit in 5
This
pages
much,
or
yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
And that becomes a bit arbitrary, right?
Mm.
But then the other thing being that you go from going, well, I've got 22 lessons for this unit, and then you try to reduce it down, but still try to do the whole text, and
Yeah.
being 48 lessons.
Yeah, yes, yes.
You know? So whether or not it is that we're more strategic about how we jump through the text,
Maybe.
whether it is, that we just sort of less is more, you know?
Mhm, yeah.
I just saw a thing from Hattie reflecting on the fact that he'd like to take 50% of the curriculum out and go deeper into all of it.
Yeah.
And perhaps we still get better outcomes, perhaps we still achieve more things, even though we feel like meaning's being interrupted, or,
Yeah.
you know, the intentional...
Then I suppose the reviews could come into it instead of being like a review on like an actual, like I dialect. Sorry, I'm reading off the wall now. Like I dialect or like central conflict. Maybe the review is, where did we get up to last lesson? Where did we leave off specifically, to like refresh and like keep that in their mind, and then we continue on and use it in that capacity instead of like.
And at that 9-10 level too, the tricky thing is that we often haven't had the kids given an opportunity to read the text before we read it.
Yeah.
So ideally we'd get to VCE where that would happen.
Yeah, where that would happen.
It hasn't necessarily, particularly for the year 11 cohort. The fact that we were halfway through Gatsby and they're like, I didn't know Gatsby died, why did you spoil it?
Boggles my mind.
I mean, we'd also watched like videos at the start,
Yeah.
sort of did plot summaries, but anyway, it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. It's fine. Everything's fine.
Everything's fine. Everything's gone. And sort of that it's not so much around discovering it for the first time or reading it with the intention of sort of understanding it through the eyes of a intended reader and sort of being able to make predictions and, you know, draw connections and sort of have that reading experience. It's more of an analysis experience. Like we have to sort of, if we had to set that mindset, it's more around not necessarily reading it for the effect of it, reading it for enjoyment, but reading it in a much more sort of deconstruction way, which is a bit sad, I find.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a little bit of, you're missing out a little bit there.
I feel like they'd enjoy the text a lot more if they read it first and then we broke it down.
Yeah, like you want them to have that opportunity to enjoy the text. You want them to have that opportunity to experience the text. And like that's what I do with the VCE crew. I send them off on the summer and say, your job is to read the text as it's intended to be read.
Yeah.
You know, not as if it was, like these writers never wrote this novel hoping that it'd be studied and pulled apart by, you know, 17-year-olds in an English classroom in Terang.
100%.
Right? In fact, they're probably very stressed about it.
Yeah, probably.
So first up, you have to have that experience of the text, but you have to do that independently. Now, the next trick is, and increasingly we have kids coming up into VCE levels who can't necessarily access the text independently.
Yeah.
Like even with Go School in Year 12, like it's a short text, but I said, it's going to be dense, it's going to be heavy, you're going to struggle with this. And they're like, and then they come back and they're like, what the hell is that? I have no idea what was going on. I have no idea what was being said or what was happening, and you know they just sort of freaked out about it.
Yeah.
And it's not until we started analysing it that they
Started to
could
understand,
understand what was
yeah.
going on. And so that first reading, they probably weren't ready for independent reading, but at the same time, that experience did inform.
Yeah,
the
it helped them
analysis.
understand it a little bit better.
And like, I didn't set that text because I thought they'd enjoy it, and that it's the kind of text I want to put in their hands, you know, for the rest of their lives. Like
Yeah.
it serves a purpose for sort of themes and analysis opportunities, and that they can, you know, if you tell, ultimately do well on essays, you know.
Yep.
Give them enough meat to chew on.
Chew on.
Whereas 9s and 10s, it's harder to set them up for that. Perhaps we need to look at better ways of building that up and over time. Like
Can we
it's
maybe
cultural,
try it with the next unit?
possibly?
Like,
I mean, we've only got a few weeks before we start.
well, yes, but like
Could set some reading ahead
maybe a little bit.
a little bit. I need to get more texts. And then that gives us more leeway to be able to jump ahead. Like
Yeah.
even I think about the chapter summary slides. I skim through those really quickly because like I like them because they're priming them with the knowledge of what's coming up so they can focus on more technical stuff.
Yep.
But I still find they're a bit of a waste of time in the way that we're doing them.
Could we do them as
particularly
dot points rather than like paragraphs?
Could be.
Like I feel like if we condensed it down a little bit and we're like, this is what happens in order, and then
Yeah.
you go read.
And then there's value in being able to sort of go, okay, well I know what's going to happen, so now I can focus on. But then also perhaps the better place of that is to use it to fill in the gaps that we don't read.
Yeah.
Right? So sort of go, so we just read this section, this is what happened. In the next section, you know, in case you missed it sort of thing,
Yeah.
this is what happened, and then we're picking up from here.
Yep.
And sort of using that to put extra emphasis on the sections of the text that are worth
That are
analysing,
worth, looking
rather
at
than spending 40 sessions.
reading a whole book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think perhaps, and again, this isn't to tomorrow, but over time, being able to rebuild into it some, you know, independent reading that they are doing and sort of encouraged to do. And
Well, they've enjoyed it for this unit. So I'm like, maybe we could try it maybe earlier on for the next one, see how that goes. Because there are actually students who are like, don't read to me. Like, I don't want you to read to me.
And again, like, I think Reading Room does a really good job of being able to go, well, this is the benefit of this, but this is what you miss out on, and this is the benefit of having it being read to them, and this is what they miss out on.
Yeah.
And like every choice you make, you know, there's wins and losses, there's, you know, consequences of that,
Yeah.
as well as benefits. You just got to weigh it up and make those good instructional choices.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's the project.